everybody. Mark Victor Hansen here, and I'm excited to share with you one of my friends who's a doctor. His last name is Doctor, so it's Dr. Ray Doctor,
Yes.
Doktor. And I'm glad that he laughs at that because I'm sure he had to grow up with that. And then he's got a kid named Maximus Doctor, which is even more exciting. But you're about to meet one of the most eclectically wise, totally insightful, psychologically aware, spiritually evolving people on the planet that's going to help take you and elevate your self-awareness, your consciousness, your soul growth, and your development from here to there. So
no pressure there.
No pressure there. Well, it just, and by the way, the book you're going to buy, each and every one of you, is all it takes is one to drop one hidden belief and master your life. Because all of us got some beliefs that are crushing us, subverting us, thwarting us, and he's about to eliminate those. My dear friend Ray, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying the weather and the sun finally coming out and seeing. I'm in a beautiful studio where I'm just seeing. It's strange how like the perennials, like they just know when to come back, and so things are starting to pop out. Yeah.
Where are you geographically?
I'm in Ashland, Oregon.
Oh, that is one of the beautiful places, and the Shakespearean festivals and all that good stuff happens there. And for those of you who've never been there, you need to go if you're interested that much in Shakespeare, because he's the second highest selling writer of long time after the Bible. But let's talk about your book. Why did you write this great book?
I wrote this book to make it simple for the lay person or the advanced person in the healing arts who feels as though that they're stuck and they can't get out of it to move forward in their life. And we're bombarded with information of how we're supposed to connect to happiness, how we're supposed to build confidence and so forth. But more than often that there are hidden beliefs that even therapists or coaches miss. And so the book, it goes into those sticky thoughts that are, say, unseen. For example, a client could have a propensity to not even know how to use the tools, or they feel as though nothing's going to work. And on their way to see the coach or therapist, they get in a car accident or their car doesn't start. And there's no coincidence. Within their program, it's already hardwired that they can't even get improvement with working with a coach. So in the book, I break down everything in ways where I would say there's shadows where people can finally get the help that they need. And I wrote it in really basic, simple language of a recipe to get there.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let him go into those in deep, but I've got to go way, way, way back to he's a little bitty kid and getting beat up and emotionally rejected because his feet weren't like that. His feet were like this. Can you talk to that? And the fact what happened, and that's only the first of several leg experiences that you had.
Well, many people, they think they are where they are today or who they are today by the totality of their life, such as this idea of the past. And for example, for me, I was born with my legs were crooked. So I wore braces just like Forrest Gump. And I had asthma. There's many other challenges I had where, let's just say that kids would look at me as if I were different. I also was raised Jewish in a very conservative town. I looked far more Asian than I do now. And so I looked way different. And so I was made fun of. In that experience, like many people, we have negative feelings, self-doubt, and so forth. However, one thing that my father instilled in me is knowing who I am, truly who I am. So even in those experiences, I felt bad. It's where that I also knew that it wasn't me, that it was others as well. However, through my journey of going through different challenges of, say, finally getting validation and people liking me and maybe getting a girl, it still wasn't enough. So I, like many people, basically tried to build the best body, make the money, and all these things to give me some sense of self. But most of us crash. That doesn't work because that's not who we really are. In other words, when we're trying to create some idea of who we are and it's not our authentic self, it's not sustainable. And eventually who we really are shows up in relationships, and it shows up in self-sabotage. It shows up in having DUIs. And that's why many people, what they'll do is they keep trying to move forward to improve their life, and they might see themselves as a loser, but above in a spiritual curriculum, when you're connected to your soul, your authentic self, then you're getting messages through God. You're getting messages through like your just own true sense of self, your soul. And therefore you start aligning with more with your purpose and journey. And you recognize all these challenges are just there for you to learn and grow and expand. And hopefully you can start creating and attracting the life that you want. So it started from beginning of being different, getting injured, to many challenges. But through that, I learned that taught me to learn who I really am, to stay true to myself.
So let's go to Dad, and then I want to go to Maximus. But first, Dad, what did Dad do to implode in you good self-esteem, so to speak?
Well, my father, a very strong man, he was in the military for 30 years. His father died when he was 2. His mother died when he was 15. Uh, my family was raised on taking personal responsibility, and that is getting up and doing something about it, not playing into victimhood. So my father was a self-made in the sense that no matter of what people might call his shortcomings, he said, well, his attitude was, what are you going to do about it? You know, if you're bleeding, what are you going to do about it? And when he, like, as an example, he had been in over 700 missions and 400 of them were in battle. So they make movies about men like this. He got shot and right in his ass, and he wanted to get home, so he just basically taped it. He's like, you know what? I'm not going back. My ass is bleeding, but you want to know what? I got to survive. I got to move forward. And so his attitude was more about like, you know, you got to get shit done. And so that's what he instilled in me. He's like, where he would always honor my feelings. He would talk to me, but he's like, what do you want to do? And that's important because it's like, you can honor your emotions, but there's actions you can take to better your life. And that's what he instilled in me.
So talk about now, you've got a little kid in your life with one of the best names ever. I've got to say that Maximus is really a solid name. Obviously, it's got lots of movies with that in it nowadays, but talk about Maximus and what he's done for your heart and soul.
Well, Maximus showed up when he was 5.5 months old. So that was an experience where, again, there's probably going to be a movie made about it, but where his mother text messaged me. It's one of those things those conversations you don't text a man or anybody, and said that you are, you know, a father. And of course, I went and got the DNA test and all of that. Some people can go, wow, how did that happen? But it's a beautiful story. But he showed up. And I would say this, that it's one thing to be a teacher and like even appear or sound really smart here. It's another thing to really embody it. And so when you have an innocent, beautiful child who's looking at you and their nervous system is matching how you show up and how you not show up, I guess you could say it's definitely a shit detector. It's where being with my son became an experience where I was actually really embodying my teachings. It was patience. It was really connecting to fears I had about my relationship with his mother. I didn't even know much about her. And so it kind of brought me to my knees to really embody what it is I share in my book. And I would say probably one of the most profound things about him is just how my experience with him as a father, and by how I'm pretty calm with things, has shaped him and to perceive change in the most loving and adaptable way, where Max has never had a tantrum. Max doesn't really have the challenges that I see a lot of children have, because he looks at life with choices. He doesn't turn into victimhood. So it's almost as if he's like I can see that it worked. He just hangs out with me, and you could see it show up in his face and how he shows up on, you know, this planet as an amazing human being.
Well, that goes along with the highest spiritual teaching, which we're going to talk about spiritual teaching, because you've had some of the greats that, are even in the introduction in your book. But the point is that you're supposed to be at peace and be at calm and live from a soulful level. So take, and you said Max, essentially, I don't think these are your words, but something close when I read it deeply, is that he's holding up a mirror so you get to see you and see what works and doesn't work even in your own life. Can you talk to that? Because every parent that has kids or nephews and nieces gets a feedback, but some of them don't get that. That's their feedback, and feedback makes you more or less who you could be.
I would say it's a generalization, but many people do not know how to use feedback in a healthy way anymore. They become defensive. As an example, if I were to receive feedback for how I'm coaching and how I could do it better, it might not feel good, but this person's sharing because they feel comfortable or that they want to help me in my life, or maybe they're just giving their opinion because they're upset at me, but I see value in that. And from that loop, it's helped me become a better coach, better author, and better parent. And as far as parenting goes, is that most parents project on their child their feelings and how that experience might be for them, when children are far more emotionally resilient and don't see the world the same way. As an example, um, Max has had some like health challenges to where he's, well, let's say this, he grew up primarily with me full time. So he didn't have a mother pick him up from school. He didn't have mommy and daddy pick him up. And there are many adults that will say, my life was less because I didn't have a dad or mom. My son has never looked around and went, why am I different in a negative way? Nor has he brought it up where he was deprived. And so therefore, as long as I'm happy, as long as that there's flow and there's transparency with his life, he feels safe. So ultimately, it's very important to be transparent with your children at the level they can understand, so they feel like they're also co-creating in their environment. When they feel as though they can't, they don't feel safe. And if you're not being communicative with them, or you're awkward in questions they ask you, then they might internalize that and feel like it's coming from them, that there's something wrong with them. But when they're able to participate, it empowers them. So it's really important to recognize that with that question you asked about feedback, is that we're all participating, and it's beautiful and it's neutral. And what you can do with that is there's just magic. And so with Max, like, the greatest joy I have with Max is when he calls me out. When I do something, and because I assume something, and I always will smile, and I say, you're right. Because he is keeping me, he's helped me become a better man as well. And I love it. So he's constantly mirroring areas in my life that I can improve. In fact, yesterday or 2 days ago, I was a little bit maybe rushed, and he goes, I appreciate your patience, but he was being sarcastic. And I looked at him and I said something back at him when he went up to school. It was fun to banter, but we take our relationship very light, very loving.
So what take that arc of co-creation? How can all the people that are going to read your book and listen to us right now, what is the quickest thing they can do to change their beliefs so they co-create and have harmony and joy and ecstasy with their kids? Because most people think it's got to be a battle, and that, unfortunately, some of your peers have taught that. You're going to have the terrible twos, and obviously we got 5 kids and 6 grandkids, and we're going to have 12 before it's done, I'm sure. So I'm pretty clear that we're really great with especially the grandkids, because I've learned that. But I'm older. But how does somebody do it when they're younger?
Well, first off, in one of the chapters, it's funny, Mark, I learned as an author that when you write a book, sometimes when you're done, and you kind of forget what you wrote, or what part of that is in a certain chapter. And so that's, but there's a chapter that specifically talks about the main 11 influencers of the collective. And what I mean by that is it breaks down your relationship to sexuality, to spirituality, to trauma, to things that you witness and experience from your parents. As an example, you might be a hard worker and are unaware that you witnessed your father reading a newspaper talking about how hard life is and that it's always going to be difficult. And he basically had a scarcity mindset. But until you know that, you might be playing out that same pattern that's not yours. You can also avoid relationships because your parents fought and they got into a divorce. And so there's this idea that relationships never worked out, but it's more that your parents never did their inner work. So just in that little section in that book, it also has questions where you have to be authentic with yourself and ask yourself the questions such as, why do you really want to be in a relationship? How does it serve you? Like it's more where it's not, many people say, because I want companionship, I want a sexual partner, but why? And what do you hope that creates? What is the experience you hope to have becoming a parent or being in a committed relationship? And if you don't know that, then the drama, the emotions, and the unconscious mind of all your triggers will take over and lead the relationship versus two healthy people saying, I'm here, with a hope that we can create this together. To how can we collaborate? How can we co-create together? Because no matter what, that's why they call it a relating ship. It's always relating and growing and expanding. And that's what also creates a sustainable relationship. So it's very important we break down these programs that we have to understand why we believe certain things. I don't know if I put it in a book. It's kind of funny. It's a little section. I remember my dad saying to me, a dog needs a big backyard. So I believe that. And I deprived myself from not getting a dog because when I was younger, I was living in apartments. Then later in life, I went, well, you just take them on walks. You just get them to run around. So, but that was
prevailing belief.
Yeah, it was a belief. So we all, like, if there's something that we believe and it's not creating flow in our life and there's a lot of resistance, we need to look at that. We need to see if it's really serving us.
So let's talk about A and B and two questions at once. One is, you better define what a belief is because some people don't even know that they have them. And then number two is that what are the hidden beliefs that we can master, overcome, and then have self-mastery? Three questions, actually.
That's really good.
Belief. Right.
So the first one, you said what a belief might be?
Yeah, define a belief, just so everyone out there is on the same page as you and I.
Well, this could be a simple one. So right now, there are people listening to this or watching this conversation with you and I, and already they've made their mind up by maybe what they think about me by just how I look, my appearance, or the tone of my voice. So whether we see that as a belief or not, there's an emotional response. There's a narrative within yourself that's creating a perception about me. So I see perceptions and beliefs as kind of the same. It's energy that's generated within our body. So we project onto that person what we hear and see that's coming through us. But what's really important is to figure out what's coming through us. Is that truly what we want to feel? Did we get that from someone else? Did we get that from our parents? And is it healthy? So that's what I feel a belief is. It's basically we see something, we hear something, we smell something, and it generates an idea. And sometimes it could be where we see someone, we just have a moment and we just think they're a jerk. But if you've done some inner work, you stop and go, oh, that's just me having a bad day. And I'm blaming him. So we don't have to fully believe it, but we all have those experiences where we see someone driving a certain way and we say to ourselves out loud, or we might honk the horn and say something. And yet, like, we don't even know this person. We're just having a moment. We know nothing about this person and what's going on in their car. They can have a kid in the back seat and they're talking to the kid and they don't see us and they almost go into our lane, but we don't know that. So hopefully that answers your first question.
Does, yeah.
And what was the second one?
Second one is, how do we find our hidden beliefs? And then the third part to it is, how do you master? So you become a master rather than a slave to your beliefs. Like your one about you got to have a big backyard. Right? If you're going to have a dog, you're cheating the dog. Well, that's an interesting belief. Wouldn't work in New York City if you live in the city.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, and as far as discovering, your hidden beliefs, typically when I see clients for coaching, they'll come to me and they'll give me a list of things they want to work on. And I'll give you an example, just one. It might be where a couple sees me for a session and the wife is I would say on the surface is jealous. And she requests that her partner deletes his ex-girlfriends off his Facebook page to where he can't really be friends with his exes and whatever else. And he does that. But of course they go to dinner and she thinks he's flirting with a waitress because the waitress is just friendly. So what she might say is this: I'm jealous because my dad cheated. And that's about as far as she goes. My dad cheated. This is, and I'm afraid you're going to cheat on me. And the blame is typically on the outer circumstances versus taking personal responsibility. Now listen till I do this, Mark. So what would be the worst case scenario if he were to cheat? Oh, then I'd have to start all over again. What are you afraid of being alone? Like what fears do you have of being alone? I don't know. I don't really feel good being by myself. In fact, I get lonely. How do you really feel about yourself if he were to look at another woman or cheat? Then I'm not that attractive. Then what this person recognizes that I feel this way already. I'm lonely already. And I feel all these things even with him. And therefore, all I'm doing is trying to navigate his path so he never recognizes that I feel that way by projecting it onto what he needs to do with his ex-girlfriends. So it's turning around. And in the book, it guides you in a way to ask these simple questions, such as, what is the worst case scenario? Well, then I'd have to start all over and take personal responsibility to what would happen if you would leave that toxic relationship. Well, then I'd have to get a job. Okay. So sometimes there's secondary gains. So in a way, the way my book works and how I work is where that with every like belief you have that is creating resistance, that there's something within you that's actually holding that in place. And what I mean by that, for example, we have all witnessed people be in toxic relationships, but they won't step out. And that is because they have a stronger hidden belief that they can't maybe take care of themselves. They have a stronger belief it's scarier to be single. They have a stronger belief that they're not going to be able to pay their bills. And until that's uncovered, they'll stay in a relationship. Those are hidden beliefs. Those are examples of hidden beliefs.
So suddenly we're talking about a wife being jealous of her husband. So are you breaking the belief bonds on both of them? You got to bring her in as well as him, because she's the one suffering the jealousy. She's the one thinking he's flirtatious at a restaurant at all.
Well, every situation is different, but absolutely. So here's the thing. If he keeps enabling by doing those things and feeling resentment, then he's going to start pulling away anyway. So whether in every relationship, with couples or business partnerships, we're all participating. There's a way in which we can participate in a better way or have deeper understanding. And there's ways that we also might enable our partner. So as an example, if you were to ask what I would maybe advise for the man, well, if that woman were to know that she's afraid to be alone and she's not attractive, or she feels that way, then I might have her ask her husband what he feels about that. And hopefully he'll say, I think you're beautiful. I love you. And I might ask her, do you believe that? And she might say yes or no. If she says no, then it'd be, what can we do to help you feel better? What is in your way? And that might go to some deeper childhood stuff. But again, if he's showing up exactly in that loving way, and it's only mirroring more of her darkness, that's beautiful. In fact, I think a lot of people come together in relationships and they get triggered and they think, God, I'm done with this. And yet those are the unhealed shadows, and there's opportunity there.
Right. And that's what you do is bring light on it, because all
Yes.
it takes is one.
Yeah.
And now the third question was, how does both the husband in this scenario and the wife master themselves so they're above their beliefs rather than their beliefs constricting them, like you broke the belief that your dad had about dogs?
Mm-hmm. Well, as far as
happen?
so for example, with this woman I described, uh, it almost sounds like an affirmation or reframing, but while part of that is true, it's an it's an actual integration, and she is to put that in action. So what I mean by that is, if she knows that she's never felt attractive, and it's because, say, her father cut her down or father cheated and so forth, in the coaching session or by reading a book, that what it does is it gives you the opportunity to recognize that you hanging on to the belief that your sense of self is based on your father's experience is not true, or what your father said, it doesn't matter. Now, what can you do today to start living and moving in a path to where you embody that you are attractive? And that might lead to this. It might be where she says that I'm amazing as I am. That might be the affirmation.
That'd
It
be the
might
right
be her
one.
it might be going in a mirror and literally like unclothing herself, looking at that and loving every part of her body for how it is, not what has been projected onto her. So she feels that in her body. It could be where her husband and her, instead of just jumping into bed, or where they're just kind of on the surface with conversations, it could be where they're both looking into each other's eyes, basically into each other's soul, to where they feel that soul connection of that oneness and that worthiness. Because, Mark, there is feeling good because someone gave you a compliment, or feeling good because you made some money. But it's another thing to not have these narratives and attachments to the outer world and what other people do for you to feel good. And that takes the work of eliminating what you think your sense of self is based off of, such as your looks, your money, and all these other things. So in my book, it strips away all of those narratives that most of us humans carry. And then what it does is it helps you basically reparent yourself and create new identities that is more authentically true to you. And then it's, how would I live this way? Where I would show up feeling the best as I can anyway. It would be, if you're in a negative co-parent situation, it's recognizing, well, my kids are still looking at me anyway. And while the other co-parent might be difficult, I'm going to show up as light anyway, because that's who I am. It's where you start moving into the way of the beingness of that. And then that crystallizes in your body. It becomes part of your neural net. It becomes your personality. It just becomes who you are.
You are so clearly articulate and eloquent, and I'm thankful for that.
Thank
But
you.
the people need to know sort of where you got it, because you've studied everyone from Dr. Louise Hayes to Fritz Perls and the rest of the team, all of whom I happen to know because I've done the same study. So I'm deeply thankful for some of the mentorship you've gotten physically and metaphysically by reading their books. Can you talk to some of that, please?
Yeah, I'll give you a pretty fun story. Well, when I used to travel the world with Dr. Netherton, who worked with Fritz Perls and many of the names you brought up. And uh, it's there's a session he did where he used to do past life regressions, and he fell into it like in a I guess he fell asleep while he's working with his therapist, and he just went somewhere else, and the therapist just went with it. And then he kind of created his own method. And in one of his sessions, a man came to him, and the man had basically a he was starting to get migraines again. Uh, he was having trouble with his family, and he was just wondering if he can experience some type of ease. Well, Morse discovered, whether it's true or not, again, it doesn't matter, but I just see these connections, whether it's astrology or breath work or working with a coach, as just permission slips to have some way to talk to your consciousness with more openness and awareness, so you can shift and grow. And in this experience, this guy went into a past life where it was during the Civil War, and he got shot in the head, and he's holding his head, And the last thing he remembers is, as long as I feel pain, I know I'm alive. As long as I'm in pain, I know I'm alive.
Yep.
He brought that into the current life where he drew a connection to that, whatever the oversoul experience was. He also was born where he had to be pulled out with forceps, pressure on his head.
Which is
And
bad because then you get a squished head, right?
yeah, there. And then what was happening in his life was that he was trying to embark on a new career, a new journey, and it was triggering this memory. And he was also having a lot of challenges with his family. But regardless of whether that past life is true or not, what I learned from Dr. Netherton was this, is that I did a lot of past life regression sessions, and there was always an overarching statement that this person, this client would connect to, like a statement, as long as I'm in pain, I know I'm alive. Life is always going to be difficult. Um, I'm never going to be nobody. And they bring it. And people call that karma. I see it as more cognitive blueprints, or maybe the potential of living a life to where you can heal and understand that thing better. But every time they're born in a family where you see the dynamics of the family, in a way, create an opportunity, like a container, for that person to overcome that. That's why I even named the book That One Hidden Belief, because what people discover is that it's usually 1 to 2 beliefs that create all the problems in our lives. And if I do past life regression sessions, you'll see that same belief. And so they haven't graduated from this. Therefore, if you wipe that out and you counteract the actual learning, the embodiment of it, your life will change inside and out.
So let's talk to that for a second, because one of the greatest, we were at a dinner recently down in Nashville, and they had napkins that said the karma never loses an address. And now if we're doing past lives and somebody's karma comes through that I'm always going to live in pain, they have a secret mantra, a secret hidden, you call hidden mantra that they're repeating in this life, whether they know it or not. And so let's do it 2 ways. One is, if somebody gets your book, will they be able to catch it without? Number 2 is, can they come to you as a real psychologist, or can they do a telephone consult? So, and can you in 1 hour in either one of those 2 live positions with Zoom or whatever, find everybody's hidden belief? Is there been, let me do it negatively first. Has there ever been anyone that came to you as a patient that you didn't find their negative belief, or one of the ones anyhow?
Not at all. I actually currently am doing a free Zoom session. It was kind of part of building up the book campaign, and I'm getting to I usually can get to people's hidden beliefs within 5-10 minutes. I could do quick breakthrough coaching like that. It's very fun for me. So it's not that hard. It's just that whether or not the person starts practicing and living the life of the other way they want to live, the new, say, reframing of that consciousness, because it really takes personal responsibility as well. And I'm not talking about willing yourself into it and you don't really believe it, like faking it until you make it. I'm more about that. Once you eliminate the fears that hold that negative belief in place, it's a lot easier to become whoever you prefer to be.
So give an example of that as somebody that you did in, if you can, don't use their name. Let's keep everybody neutral and invisible, right? But what's what's the biggest belief that you help almost more people than not overcome?
Well, the main belief, core belief in almost all people, is that I don't trust myself. I don't trust the process of life. I really don't trust God. And I'll give you an example. And a bunch of parents are going to go, oh my God, this is me. And that is where they'll say, I'm okay. But the moment something happens to my daughter or son, Papa Bear comes out of me, Mama Bear comes out of me, and they become angry, and they react. And it's justified. And within our collective, people celebrate that you're a great parent. However, what would happen if something bad happened to your child? I would feel like I'm a bad parent and I couldn't protect him or her. What part of you feels like you're playing God? Oh, do you really have a spiritual belief? Well, they'll go into, well, as a parent, I know you're a parent, but is your kid here on their own free will as well? So what fears do you have if something were to happen that I couldn't stop it? So what's your relationship to the process of life, to the unfoldment of that? We're all here to learn and grow. In fact, you're probably here, like, to say if it's a client, because you overcame something. What part of you doesn't trust that your child can't overcome something as well? And it comes back to that thing where I don't really trust how this whole thing called life works. That's the biggest one. I see it a lot. And it's always justified by, I'm just trying to be a good parent. Well, what does that mean to be a good parent? What does that mean to be a good parent? And so again, that even breaks up, open up more conversations, such as, oh, well, I go, because your child is upset with you because of your decisions, does that make you a bad parent? Because you mess up one time, does that make you a bad parent? Because you pay the bills and you're always present with your kid, does that make you a good parent? Like, why is there even judgment with this? Why not just be the best human you can be and show up as presently you can be and trust that you're co-creating with your child?
So, what is it that you say, or how is it that you see, your ability to see their hidden? I'm going to call it agenda or belief that's causing their life withhold from success.
What are you, by the way, you
Every
did ask.
patient you get, every client you get, how do you see it? What's the secret sauce? It's just you've trained yourself to look beyond the physical exterior and simple words, so you can read through the words and see what the belief is and bring it out, and then expose them to it so they can correct it if they're willing to take help.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, typically when people have conversations with me, sometimes I do it with them in real time. Uh, but absolutely, I've become very laser focused and listening to language and how they say things, and then I throw it back at them, and it comes out of them. You asked me a question, and that was, if a person reads your book, would they be able to discover their hidden beliefs? Absolutely. Now, will it guarantee them that they'll uh, be able to move forward or they won't need coaching? I don't know. I've also set up in a way where I can support clients or readers as well when they read the book, because I also know within that container, you can see growth also, such as Joe Dispenza has meditations out there. Joe Dispenza has his books out there, but people kind of go into his retreats where they can have the actual experience and feedback loop also. I think that's utterly important. But in the book, it takes you on a journey. It really is specifically written a certain way, such as I start off with a case study of why a person got stuck. It
Mary,
goes into the main influencers of like how we've come to be. It goes into stepping into the expectations that we put on ourselves, such as there's a section where there's a release ceremony, such as many people who experience what psychologists call complicated grief is more of this. And it's where they have a parent who died, they never said sorry to, or I loved you, or that they never got to meet their parent. And their entire life is lived out as if this was the culprit that created problems in his or her life. And yet there's other people who've never met their parents and they're completely fine. So in this release ceremony, I take people through an exercise where they release these attachments to this idea of this is why their life is the way it is, such as even say women who never had children. They say, well, I missed out on life, and they'll blame like their sadness on not being able to have that experience. But it's not absolutely true. It's a belief within your consciousness, but it's not necessary what has defined your life. It's that you basically, instead of moving into the space of acceptance of why something maybe didn't work out and to grow from that so you can become more, you basically just sat with victimization, or you basically just stopped yourself from exploring more and not remaining curious. So you mentioned the word also success. what defines success? Of course, some people see that with making money. Some people see that of becoming a big influencer, but that needs to be redefined by ourselves also. As an example, um, let's just say this in this now moment, I hope this book does really well. I mean, I wrote it from a place of excitement. I know it's really good. However, what if I were attached the idea that unless it sells so many copies, I'm a failure, or it's considered a success because people bought it, versus did I enjoy it? Did I love the compliment that Mark gave me? Uh, when I wrote it, was I my heart and including my girlfriend and my child, meaning that like even writing this book, it was really about offering it to the world from my heart. My success is not defined by being validated by external forces. My success is defined by how I live each moment in my present body and hopefully have enough awareness to remain in a place of joy.
Precisely. I'll just do, I'm going to jump out of your book into another book we did called Healed, with an 89-year-old lady who said, I'm too old at 88 to write a book. And I said, no, you got supernatural healing gifts. You got to do them. And she runs a little chapel here once a month because of her chronology. And what's happened is, since the book came out, not only does it sell, but they've had to blow out the front and the back of the church to build it because so many people are showing up. Because what I said when we started this whole process with you is the book's got to be original. Yours is totally original. It's got to be inevitable that somebody reads it as a page turner and they go, I got to hand this to somebody else. I know this person who are stuck in a belief here. And if they read Ray or Dr. Ray, or they come and talk to him or consult with him on the phone, they can go to here, which is what the goal is. A plant is supposed to grow to its fullness. You can help people get out of the little belief into a more macro belief so they can grow and fulfill their life. Same thing as what's happened with Sarah O'Mara, who wrote Healed. It's very exciting for me to watch, because I really believe, like I said to you in the beginning, the Queen Mary has a little rudder, but that little rudder turns that thing around, but it takes 7 miles. Well, you're turning people's around belief because you're doing pattern interrupts, which maybe you better define that, and maybe you better define reframing, because some people that have not studied any psychology and didn't go to college and take a Psych 101 may not know those terms. So I'd ask you to hit on those if you would, please, Ray.
Well, so for clarity, what is it that I was trying to hear a question.
What is a pattern interrupt, and what is reframing their mind and belief?
Well, disrupting a pattern might be something like this. Well, I do it all the time with my son. It's pretty amazing. It always works. Well, there could be a moment where something happens. Let's just say he doesn't understand something, or I could see his energy go into experiencing it in a negative way. I might interject with something very comical, what doesn't even seem like it matches the pattern, but in a moment it just disrupts him going down this downward spiral. And that has also helped him shape his perception to recognize that all there is in life is opportunities to learn and grow and expand. So it could be also where it's kind of funny. I even wrote in a book about the personality friction points. And this is the guy who actually kind of influenced me about this. And he was dominating the room, just really chatty, and no one could even get a word in. And I accidentally, and I don't know if it was an accident, probably was an accident, I dropped a glass and it shattered. And it took everyone's attention away to where like it opened up for everyone else can start talking again. And it was kind of funny. It was like a perfect pattern disruption. And I don't think that was an accident. So that's when like physically it happened.
Right.
Yeah.
And you change, Tony Robbins says, of course, you change your physiology, you change your future. And that's sort of true too.
Yeah.
Right? If you walk around slumped over, you're going to be a schmo and less than. But if you straighten up and fly right, so to speak, in the military, I always teach you shoulders back, chin down, head up, all that.
Absolutely. And reframing, a really easy and simple way to reframe something would be like this. And this is how I also help people shift like beliefs. So a person, for example, my co-parent, she brought up something about how a supervisor had a belief about her. She said this. She started saying, she was thinking this and she was saying that and blah blah blah. In the way I turn it around, I said, so what part of you actually even cares what she believes?
What does he say?
There's this long pause. Why do you even care what she believes? So it's like we'll pay attention to what someone's saying, and we'll feel negative, but we can also question ourselves and reframe it by saying, what part of me actually feels the need to believe this person? Is this a friend? Does this really matter? Kind of like Byron Katie's work. What would happen if I didn't have this thought? Well, I wouldn't care about her opinions and what she thought and believed. And people don't recognize how much power they have by recognizing that they can hear information, they can experience or have someone judge them, but also ask themselves the simple question: what part of me would allow this person's judgment bother me? Like, just plain and simple, why would I allow this? Ask yourself, what part of me would have to feel bad enough to believe this? What part of me would even invite this into my energetic field? Because we're all being judged, but it's up to us to allow it to bother us. It's taking personal responsibility.
Yeah, perfect. We had somebody just text me the question about what happened, how Maximus came to you, and you didn't know about him for the first 5 years. You don't have to answer.
5.5 months.
So 5.5 months. So
yeah,
you don't have to answer that, but if you would, I think it'd be of interest. And like you said, it should be a film.
Oh yeah, I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I have a video with a little more clarity on it that came out. I shot it, I think, 2016, and I finally put it out. Well, his mother and I had that experience, and she was separated at the time. And I say this very gingerly because, her and I have a very great relationship, and our lives have just been really beautiful. In fact, I moved her up here to be close to Max, so we all live in the same area.
What a nice guy.
And she has a partner. She has he has a younger sister now too. So we have a beautiful blended family. She was separated and she got pregnant, and she got back together with her ex, or he's an ex, her husband. And there was uncertainty in the moment of like whose child it was. But when Max was born, he clearly looked like me, or a little bit more like me, because
right, got it. Half.
Yeah, but there's more to that story I don't want to share. But let's just say 5.5 months later, it was clear that she had to leave that. Like, it was a very toxic relationship. She literally had to get out of that. And I helped her get a restraining order and everything else. And then I helped get I moved forward to get my name on his birth certificate, all these other things. And I helped her get her back on her feet, and she's thriving. So that's how it all happened. I missed all the shitty diapers.
Good. And by the way, it takes one. And the reason I brought that up, and somebody texted me, and could I ask that question while we're on? And I don't want to be intrusive, but the fact is, it took one, and you've got the strength of character, the strength of manhood, the understanding, the comprehensive awareness that you can look at a situation and say, wait, back to what your mother said to you, back to when we started this interview, there's a right way to do this and a wrong way to do this. And this is the right way to do it because you are unconditionally loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, it's also like, so for example, when I share with my son, there's not necessarily, there's clearly like right and wrong ways to go about life and so forth. Like, we're all about integrity, following through and so forth. However, as an example, he has more of my humor. He's very sarcastic. He seems more like a 70s child, and therefore he relates better with adults. However, where we live, the kids are hypersensitive. He's not that relatable to some of them. The one kid he does connect to is from England, go figure. And, but I've shared it with him. I said, you can say these things in front of my friends. They'll get you and they'll probably laugh. And then with these other kids, you might get like a blank look. It's just up to you to know how to read the room and recognize what experience you might get. It doesn't mean it's bad or good, but one area with people, it might be well received, and with other people it might not be. Your choice.
So how to talk about the multiplicity of ways people are going to buy your book, because it's a great book and I recommend it 100%. And some of them are going to call you and say, would you sign it and then send it to me? And that's up to you to pull off. And I'm glad you'll do that. But talk about can they do group consulting with you? Can they do individual patient relationship? Can they do telephone consults? Are you on tour now to sell your book? What's going to happen for you with regard to the book?
Because I'm a full-time dad and I love seeing my son grow up, I'm hoping to do everything I can as much as possible from where I live. It's a great place of vacation, so there's a good chance that I'll do retreats here. However, what I'm doing on an ongoing basis is a weekly group call. And the way it's going to be set up where people can come in and have a month experience for free. And then after that, it's paid for, but it's less than just one-on-one session for me. And you'll have experience to work in a group with other people to see it in real time, what happens. A lot of people experience value by just watching other people break through stuff.
Totally.
We're all, so that's, and then I do one-on-one sessions as well. However, the group container, I always advise people to check out first, because if you're not, get to know me. Like, well, let's see if I resonate with you. Watch someone else be brave and move through something, and just take your time, and you can see how this works. I mean, I would love people to see how easy it could be. I know people stay in therapy for 20 years and nothing changes because they're just talking about the same story, same wound, rather than why did I allow that wound to define me, and how would I prefer to live, to what resistance do I have with moving forward in my life. And so my work is all about getting out of those identities that are keeping you stuck.
Perfect. So how do they get a hold of you? Give us your best email, because I assume that's the best thing. We don't want to give a phone number unless you want to do a business phone number.
Best way to reach me is my website, which is raydoktor.com. Again, raydoktor.com. And through there, they can book a free discovery call. But I also have, and it's in the book also, it's raydoktor.com/tools, TOOLS, raydoktor.com/tools. And there we'll have the information of the group, also how to join, and also tools that are literally in the book. Some of the exercises in there are guided imagery, and so I have music and my voice on it also.
I just want to hitchhike on what he said at the beginning of this thing. Is that I don't know what his schedule is, and how many of you are going to travel this spring and fall. And some of you are going to be watching this a year from now, and things will keep changing in his life, because this book is going to sell like crazy, I predict, because it's going to help so many people. But if you get a chance to go to Ashland, Oregon, Oregon is one of America's 50 great states. And we've had on the bottom, I don't know if you got to read it, people from Romania and India and all kinds of places listening to us right now. But in India, they can still travel to America. In Romania, maybe not. I don't know that for sure. But if you can, and you show up, and you schedule yourself by looking at his schedule and synchronizing and matching it with your schedule, not only will you have a glorious, mind-expanding, hidden belief break-bending experience, but like he says, Ashland, Oregon is one of the greatest, most pleasant, most exciting, delightful places. And the people are a little bit of higher mindedness, generally speaking. Would you agree with all that?
It's definitely a healing vortex. There's a lot of authors here that we know of.
Yep. By the way, I'm friends with everybody from Neil Donald Walsh's own little health check out. But I've known each other 40 years. So, and then Jean Houston, Dr. Jean Houston, is considered by many the smartest woman alive, head of mind research at Harvard. So I like your neighbors, I like you, and I like your neighborhood. And I'm saying there's a cosmic invitation for some of you that some of you say, well, I've always wanted to go to Oregon, and I'm stuck here in Mississippi or wherever you're listening from. I'm not in judgment of. I'm friends with a lot of people in Mississippi. We had a daughter that's a professor at Ole Miss, so that's not the issue. The issue is this is one of those glorious places that does not show up in Travel and Leisure magazine. And when you go there, not only will you have a life improving, changing experience with Dr. Ray, but you're going to have a life memory of one of the most glorious places. You want to take pictures because it's scenically beautiful. You'd agree with that, right?
Oh, yeah. So it's interesting you're bringing this up because I just had a conversation with my girlfriend about how this seems like this is a great retreat hub. It just has everything you need from massages, beautiful trails to hike. It's just the scenery is gorgeous. The people are pretty calm. It's probably the safest place to raise a child. They slow down when kids are crossing the streets. And it's just a really well kept area. So,
well, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Ray, give them how to get a hold of you. And I'm just so thankful that you're willing to share so openly.
oh, you're welcome. So again, my website's raydoktor.com. And then also, if you want to learn about the group or get other tools that you want to maybe have them read to you, because there's going to be an audible version of this as well. So we made this tools section for my book also to help people who get the audible version of it later on. And that's raydoktor.com/tools, TOOLS. So.
And Ray, just so you know why I had you repeat that, there's some people driving in the car listening to you, and they're not going to. I hope they don't watch us on the TV screen while they're driving. So we get so many letters from people saying, just have them repeat it twice. So I did that. Any last words you've got to give these people a belief system epiphany to get rid of their hidden withholds?
Well, so for example, many people have a story of why they are where they are. And I hear that all the time. And I'm one of those coaches, people who trigger those who are coaches, because even coaches have come to believe that you just have to manage this problem. But the question is, what if you don't? What if you have been looking at it in a way in which keeps you in that kind of victim mentality? What if a hidden belief is that you don't believe that you can change? What if there's a belief that you can't maybe trust working with anyone, therefore you haven't experienced a true value and your transformation, you're experiencing transformation? So the point I'm saying here is that you can arrive to an excuse or belief, but underneath that, I guarantee if you do a little excavating, you'll discover that, oh, there's a secondary game of staying stuck, or, oh, there's still much that's unknown that I haven't looked at. And so hopefully by me saying this, that you like, I don't do this much anymore, but because it became really difficult. But I used to see clients on a regular basis where they've seen 3 to 10 coaches or therapists because they couldn't break through something. And I was able to do it with them by what I'm sharing and what's in the book. And so that was another reason why I probably wrote the book, because I found myself constantly breaking through belief systems to get to the core belief. And that's the
behalf of everybody watching, we give you deep, profound, blissful thanks, and happy re-listening to this, everybody, so you get with my friend Ray.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.